Welcome. We're settling in today to really dig into some interesting commentary that's been circulating about the digital asset XRP.
Yeah, we've gathered insights from a few different market commentators looking at what they're saying.
Exactly. The idea is to unpack these views on where XRP's price might be headed, especially looking out towards the end of 2025. And maybe more importantly, why they think that. What's the reasoning?
Right. It's less about, finding the answer and more about understanding how these analysts are thinking, what signals are they watching, what factors do they see as really important for XRP.
Okay, so let's jump right in. One prediction that really stands out in the material we looked at is pretty bold, a suggestion that XRP could rally all the way to $10 by the end of 2025.
Yeah, that's a big number. And, for context, the source material mentioned that when this analyst shared their view, XRP was trading around $2.13.
Okay, 13, okay.
So getting from there to $10, that's a jump of about 370%. Yeah. It gives you a sense of the level of optimism in that particular forecast. It's not a small move they're talking about.
No, definitely not. A 370% potential upside in, roughly a year and a half, according to that view anyway.
Right.
Now, this same person, did they offer any shorter-term thoughts?
They did, actually. They also suggested XRP might have the potential to push back over the $3 mark again pretty soon. Even mentioned June as a possibility for that.
$3? Okay, that's interesting because that level has some history, right?
It really does. It takes you back. XRP first hit $3 way back in late 2017 during that huge bull run. It even peaked a bit higher, around $3.80, its all-time high.
Right, I remember that period.
But then, it fell back hard and spent 6 years basically trading way below $3. It only just managed to climb back above $3 in January of 2025.
And didn't hold it for long.
No, dipped below it again.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people watching the charts, getting back above $3 isn't just like a number. It's seen as breaking through a pretty significant resistance level, psychologically and technically.
So reclaiming it would be seen as a sign of real strength, given that history.
Potentially, yeah, based on how hard it was to get back there and stay there.
Okay, so we have this one analyst talking $10 by end of 2025, maybe $3 soon. Is this view way out there on its own, or are others seeing similar potential?
Well, it's interesting because that $10 target by 2025, it's not totally isolated in the commentary we looked at.
Oh, okay.
The sources mention other analysts who also think $10 is achievable for XRP. Now, their timelines might be a bit different, but the target itself isn't unique.
Right.
For instance, there is analysis mentioned from someone called X-Force Global, described as an Elliott Wave expert. Looking at charts back in April, they also apparently suggested XRP looked like it was setting up for a breakout, potentially towards that $10 area.
Elliott Wave. So that's more based on chart patterns and market psychology cycles.
Exactly, looking for those recurring patterns in how prices move.
Okay, so technical analysis pointing that way too. What about more fundamental reasons or bigger market catalysts? Did anyone talk about specific events?
Yes, definitely. Another commentator mentioned Kaz Abe, writing back in March, apparently highlighted 3 main things they thought could really push XRP towards $10.
And what were those?
Well, one of the big ones Kaz Abe mentioned was the possibility of an XRP exchange-traded fund, an ETF, getting approved.
An ETF,
Yeah.
right? We hear so much about ETFs for crypto now, especially after the Bitcoin ones. Why is an XRP ETF seen as such a big deal?
Yeah.
Enough to help push towards $10?
That's a really good question, and it gets to the why, doesn't it? The reasoning from analysts who focus on ETFs is kind of multi-layered.
Okay.
First, an ETF just makes investing way easier.
Right.
For traditional investors, institutions, maybe even regular folks with a brokerage account, they could get exposure without needing crypto exchanges, wallets, keys, all that stuff.
Yeah. Simplifies things a lot.
It opens the door to a much, much bigger pool of money. And second, it brings a kind of regulatory comfort, maybe, legitimacy.
Yeah.
When big financial names launch an ETF, it signals something.
Like it's more mainstream, more accepted.
Exactly. It could attract serious inflows, as one analyst put it, from institutional players who might be sitting on the sidelines now because of, uncertainty or just operational hassle.
So potentially unlocks a flood of new demand, basically.
That's the theory. That kind of capital coming in could really impact the price, especially in these markets which are still smaller than, say, stocks or bonds.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Easier access, more perceived legitimacy, potentially lots of new money coming in. But you mentioned timelines might differ. Are some analysts seeing $10, but much further out?
Absolutely. And this is where you see the range of views in the sources.
Mm,
While you have the 2025 prediction, the sources also mention other experts, someone named Ryan Lee from Bidget, analysts at Changely.
okay.
They also seem to think $10 is possible for XRP eventually, but their analysis suggests it might take quite a bit longer, maybe, somewhere between 2029 or 2030.
Wow, okay. 2025 versus 2029 or 2030. That's a pretty significant difference in timing. Why such different views on the whim?
Yeah, it highlights how different models can lead to different outcomes, right? While the sources don't spell out their exact thinking step by step, you can kind of infer where the differences might lie.
Like what?
Well, maybe the analysts looking further out have different assumptions about, say, how quickly the overall crypto market cycles will play out. Or maybe they think catalysts like an ETF approval might take longer, or the impact of regulatory clarity might take more time to fully filter through to big institutional decisions.
So less optimistic about the speed of things changing.
Could be. Or perhaps they see the adoption of related tech, like Ripple's stablecoin, building more gradually over several years, rather than causing a really sharp near-term surge in utility or demand linked back to XRP.
So they might agree on the destination, $10, but disagree on the travel time, basically.
That's a good way to put it. It really depends on how quickly they expect these different factors, regulation, adoption, market cycles, new products to all align and have their effect.
It really shows that these predictions aren't crystal balls. They're based on interpreting signals and assuming how future events might unfold.
Exactly. Which brings us to maybe looking closer at the reasons given for uh, the more bullish near-term views, like that $10 soon idea. There was one analyst, Crypto Patel, who apparently laid out 6 specific reasons. What were they?
Okay, yeah, let's break those down. What was number one on Crypto Patel's list according to the source?
Right. First up was regulatory clarity. The key point here is the ruling that in a specific legal context, XRP isn't a security. For this analyst, that's huge. It removes this legal uncertainty that's been hanging over XRP for ages.
And why is that seen as a price catalyst?
Well, the thinking is it makes exchanges more comfortable listing it, maybe opens the door for big institutions who need that kind of legal certainty, and just generally clears the path for using XRP in, say, financial systems. Removing that doubt is seen as fundamentally positive for investment.
Okay, clarity helps adoption and investment. Makes sense. What's number two?
Second was technical analysis, specifically pointing to a bullish chart. Now, we don't have the chart itself, but the reasoning is that the price patterns and movements looked positive to this analyst.
Oh.
They highlighted a strong support level around $1.70. That's like a price floor where buying seems to step in. If that $1.70 holds, the analysis suggests it provides a strong base, a potential launch pad for prices to go higher. A bullish chart just means the overall technical picture looked positive for an upward move.
So the chart setup looked promising with a key level holding. Got it. Number three.
Third was the rumors about an XRP ETF. Already touched on this, but yeah, the potential for an ETF is seen as a massive catalyst for new money coming in. Even just the rumors can create positive buzz.
Right, the anticipation factor.
Exactly. The idea that investing in XRP could become as easy as buying a stock.
Okay. What about the wider market?
That was number 4, the expectation of an altcoin season loading. You hear this term a lot. It's that phase in the market cycle, often after Bitcoin has had a big run, where money flows into other coins. Precisely. Capital rotates from Bitcoin into altcoins, and those alts can see really big percentage gains, often bigger than Bitcoin's during that period. He noted that Bitcoin's dominance, its share of the total crypto market cap, was falling, which some see as a sign this rotation might be starting.
So if an altcoin season kicks off, XRP could benefit just from that broader market trend.
That's the idea, yeah. As a major altcoin, it would likely participate.
Okay, 2 more reasons left. What's number 5?
Fifth was the growing adoption of the Ripple stablecoin, RLUSD. Ripple's been pushing this. Now, RLUSD is separate from XRP, but
more activity in the Ripple ecosystem is seen as good overall.
that seems to be the angle. More adoption of RLUSD could mean more activity on networks or platforms where XRP might play a role, or it just boosts the perception of Ripple's whole suite of offerings. It suggests the company is growing its reach, which this analyst might see as indirectly positive for XRP.
Okay. Ecosystem growth as a positive signal. And last one, number 6.
The sixth and final point was simply the recent price uptick itself. He mentioned XRP was up significantly, like 50%, from his earlier entry point when he wrote his analysis.
So positive momentum confirming the bullish view.
Kind of. For a technical analyst, a strong recent move upwards isn't just history. It can be seen as proof of buying pressure, positive sentiment, and suggests that momentum might continue. It sort of reinforces the other bullish signals.
That's quite a list. It really covers a lot of ground legal stuff, charts, market events like ETFs, broader cycles, ecosystem news, and even recent price action.
It really does. It shows how analysts often look at a whole range of factors together, trying to build a complete picture. It's not usually just one single thing driving these predictions.
So bringing this back to you, the listener, why is understanding all this useful? Hearing these predictions, the reasons, the different timelines, what's the takeaway?
Well, I think understanding these different viewpoints gives you insight into how market analysts actually think about these assets. You see what factors they're weighing heavily. Is it regulation? Is it technical levels? Is it new products like ETFs? Is it the overall market mood?
Right, it shows you what's considered important.
Exactly. It gives you a framework. So when you see news about, say, ETF developments or Ripple stablecoin, you have a bit more context from these sources about why some analysts might see that as significant for XRP's potential price.
It helps you understand the potential narratives playing out in the market, the catalysts people are watching, even if they don't agree on exactly how fast things might move.
Precisely. So just to recap quickly, we've talked about commentary suggesting a possible run to $10 by late 2025, noted the historical weight of the $3 level, heard that others see $10 as possible too, but maybe further out, like 2029 or 2030.
And we unpacked those 6 specific reasons one analyst gave for near-term optimism: regulatory clarity, bullish charts, the ETF potential, altcoin season hopes, stablecoin adoption, and recent momentum.
Right, a whole mix of fundamental, technical, and market-wide factors.
It really is a complex picture.
It is, and maybe that leads to a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. How do you think these different elements, the specific developments like regulation or stablecoins, interacting with those big market cycles like altcoin season or major events like potential ETF launches, how do they all weave together to potentially influence not just if an asset reaches a certain price, but the timeline it might take? Based on the kinds of analysis we've discussed today, it highlights that complex interplay analysts are trying to figure out.